Hi. Thanks for taking time to watch our teaching this week, week 6, More Life. We've been talking about life every week because our anchor verse reminds us that Jesus says he came that we would have life and have it abundantly. So let's look at the topic of life this week. My title is On Your Best Day or Your Worst Day, He is Life. Life in the Greek has three different words that are translated as life in English. One is bios, it's where we get the term biology, that's physical life, but it's also life of stuff, external things. Suke is where we get the word psychology, and if you can think of psychology, you might assume that it's internal, and that's true. It's our internal thoughts, emotions, things like that. And Zoe, where you might think is where we get the term zoology. And I will answer that by saying sort of. Technically, it comes from a word that's tied to Zoe called zoon, and that is living being. But Zoe is a Greek word used in the New Testament that most often is meaning the life that only Jesus brings. We can only get it from God through Jesus. It is sometimes used for physical life, but is most often used in a unique way, talking about eternal life, this special life that Jesus came to bring us. Let's look at a few places and see the difference between those Greek words. In Luke 8:14, when it's talking about seed that fell on the thorns, it says they're choked by the cares and riches and pleasures of life, and the fruit does not mature. That's bios. That word there is bios, and you can see that that's external. That's an external. In Matthew 6, it says, I tell you, do not be anxious about your life, what you eat, what you drink, and it goes on. That word used in Matthew is suke. It's that internal life. Romans 8:10 will say, if Christ is in you, although the body is dead because of sin, the spirit is life because of righteousness. That's Zoe. So they're a little different, but they all mean life. And on your best day or your worst day, he is life. He does provide our bios life and our suke life, but we're talking about Zoe life, this unique life that on our best day or our worst day, he provides. And the story we're going to look at is a worst day scenario for Mary and Martha. They have lost their brother, and in that culture, to lose the man of the house can be devastating. You would have to beg. It is a big deal that they have lost the man in the house. We're going to start and go back, and we're going to look at the whole story. Our study was just of a one section, and that's great. And we're going to concentrate on the one section, but I want to look at the whole story. So let's start. Now, a certain man was ill, Lazarus of Bethany, the village of Mary and her sister Martha. It was Mary who anointed the Lord with ointment and wiped his feet with her hair, whose brother Lazarus was ill. So the sisters sent to him, saying, Lord, he whom you love is ill. But when Jesus heard it, he said, this illness does not lead to death. It is for the glory of God, so that the Son of God, may be glorified in it. Now Jesus loved Martha and her sister and Lazarus. So when he heard that Lazarus was ill, he stayed 2 days longer in the place where he was. You don't really get the sense he loves them. Because if you heard so and so is ill and you love them, you'd get up right then and go. But Jesus knows what he's doing. He actually knows when you look at the timeline of all the days that Lazarus is already dead when he hears the news. The person coming to bring him that news doesn't know it. So they say he's sick. But Jesus knows he's already dead. And Jesus has something more in mind than just healing Lazarus. Warren Wiersbe will say God's love for his own is not a pampering love. It is a perfecting love. We must never think that love and suffering are incompatible. Certainly, they unite in Jesus Christ. God's love is designed for our good and his glory. That is what he is about and what he's going to do in the lives of Mary and Martha and Lazarus and us. Let's go on. Then after this, he said to the disciples, "Let us go to Judea again." The disciples said to him, "Rabbi, the Jews were just now seeking to stone you, and are you going there again?" Jesus answered, "Are there not 12 hours in a day? If anyone walks in the day, he does not stumble, because he sees the light of this world. But if anyone walks in the night, he stumbles, because the light is not in him." Jesus knows his timetable, knows what he should and shouldn't do, and he knows this is something that he needs to do. After saying these things, he said to them, "Our friend Lazarus has fallen asleep, but I go to awaken him." The disciples said to him, "Lord, if he has fallen asleep, he will recover." Now Jesus had spoken of his death, but they thought that he meant taking rest in sleep. Then Jesus told them plainly, "Lazarus has died. And for your sake, I am glad that I was not there, so that you may believe. But let us go to him." So Thomas, called the twin, said to his fellow disciples, "Let us also go, that we may die with him." We're going to study Thomas in a couple weeks, and in the passage we'll look at then, he's known as Doubting Thomas. But that's an incomplete picture of Thomas, as we'll see. This is another place Thomas is mentioned, and he doesn't seem to doubt what Jesus says to do. Now we come to our passage. It says, "Now when Jesus came, he found that Lazarus had already been in the tomb for 4 days. Bethany was near Jerusalem, about 2 miles off, and many of the Jews had come to Martha and Mary to console them concerning their brother." In that time, Jews believed that the spirit hovered around the body for 3 days, but by 4 days, the body would be decomposing and there would be no hope. So the spirit would leave. That was the belief in that time. Bethany, as it says, is about 2 miles away. It's the last village before Jerusalem. Bethpage is a small thing that's on the way, but Bethany is really the bigger of the two. So when Martha heard that Jesus was coming, she went and met him, but Mary remained seated in the house. And we may want to read into this that Mary was mad and she's like, "Fine, I'm not going." But that probably isn't. We'll see from the rest of the story what's happening. I say it's because Martha was a doer and Mary a beer. In Luke 10, there's a story where Jesus has come to hang out at their house, and Martha is doing all the things you would do when you had guests, getting the food ready, getting the table ready. And at one point, she goes to Jesus because her sister's just sitting at Jesus's feet. And she says, "Lord, tell her to help me." And Jesus says, "Mary has chosen what is better." Mary was just being, she was just sitting. So Martha is a doer and Mary is a beer. So Martha goes, she does, and Mary does not. This is what is thought to be Mary and Martha's house in the city of Bethany. It wasn't what I expected when I went to see it. And this is what a lot of scholars believe may be exactly the site. It isn't always when you go to a place, it's like, well, maybe. And the reason for that is because of the big millstone there. It's told that so many people, this is the other direction in the room, so many people were going there to see what had happened, to worship, to venerate, to do all the things you would do in a house that had happened, had a resurrection in. You'd want to go see it. That so many people were going that the Romans said, "Fine, if everyone's going to this house, they're going to do work while they're there." And so they set that up so that milling could happen when they went to see it. So this is thought to be the house of Mary and Martha. Again, we don't know for sure, but it is thought to be the house. So when Martha heard that Jesus was coming, she went and met him, but Mary remained seated in the house. Matthew Henry's commentary will say, "Grace will keep sorrow from the heart, but not from the house." When God, by his grace and providence, is coming towards us in ways of mercy and comfort, we should, like Martha, go forth by faith, hope, and prayer to meet him. Martha goes towards Jesus. We need to be people who, even in our grief, on our best day or our worst day, we move towards the one who is life. Martha said to Jesus, "Lord, if you had been here, my brother would not have died. But even now I know that whatever you ask from God, God will give you." The first thing that's on your notes page is the life can handle your emotions. And I use the term the life there because Jesus will say, I am the resurrection and the life. So Jesus, the life, can handle your emotions. Martha goes to him and says, if this had happened, you wouldn't have been here. She does something called lament. She is speaking clearly how she feels to God. Lament in the dictionary is a passionate expression of grief or sorrow, to mourn. Lament. That's what she's doing. And that is something that's common in the Bible. It's the most dominant kind of psalm. There's five kinds of psalms, and with more than one third being laments. There's an entire book in the Bible called Lamentations. We believe that the Bible was inspired by God. He inspired the writers to write what they wrote, and that it was collated, put together by God. So God wanted lament in there. He wants us to see we can come to him with our real emotions. I want to look at one of those laments for a few minutes. It's Psalm 13. This is the entire lament. It's 6 verses. It says, how long, O Lord, will you forget me forever? How long will you hide your face from me? How long must I take counsel in my soul and have sorrow in my heart all the day? How long shall my enemy be exalted over me? Consider and answer me. O Lord my God, light up my eyes, lest I sleep the sleep of death, lest my enemy say, I have prevailed over him, lest my foes rejoice because I am shaken. But I have trusted in your steadfast love. My heart shall rejoice in your salvation. I will sing to the Lord because he has dealt bountifully with me. There's a small Greek letter word called a vav, and it looks like that, and it means hook or nail. It's also translated as but, and, or so in the Old Testament. And I know you're thinking, Kitty, what does this have to do with lament? The word hook, nail, but, and, or so. Let's go back to that psalm and see where the but comes, where the vav comes. The first half is all lament. How long, how long, how long? But once you get to but, it changes. It says, I have trusted in your steadfast love. My heart shall rejoice in your salvation. Oftentimes in a lament in the Psalms, when you get to the vav, there's a switch. This is happening, but you get to the vav and you're reminding yourself of who God is. As David's writing this, he is struggling. He's lamenting, but he also gets to the vav and he changes. I remember who you are. You have a steadfast love. We have to get to the vav in our lament. We can see in what Martha says to Jesus, Lord, if you had been here, my brother would not have died. But even now, I know that whatever you ask from God, God will give you. This isn't a vav because this is Greek, but you see, she does change. She gets out what she thinks, but she changes and reminds herself perhaps and speaks clearly to God. I know whatever you ask from God, what God will give you. There will always be a tension between human grief and divine hope. We live in what's called the already and the not yet. Our world someday will be put together, that's finished, but we don't live there. We know that someday we will have a perfect life, but we don't have it now. We still have sorrow and grief and bad days. We will always live in the tension between human grief and divine hope, but we have got to get to the vav. I see a friend's daughter lamenting on Facebook the death of her child. And she's been lamenting and lamenting and lamenting for years, but she's never gotten to the vav, never reminded herself of who God is and what he's doing. Jesus said to her, your brother will rise again. So the next thing we see is that the life teaches us what we need to know. Jesus clearly says, Lazarus will rise again. Martha said to him, I know that he will rise again in the resurrection on the last day. She has incredible trust in who God is and what will happen. That's an amazingly clear, confident thing she says to Jesus. I know that he will rise again in the resurrection on the last day. The preacher's commentary says, so often we know the Bible verses or the Orthodox doctrine, little realizing the majestic, life-giving presence the words reveal. She is saying something that she has known being an observant Jew. He will rise again in the resurrection on the last day. She doesn't understand Jesus will provide it, what that life will look like. That can happen to us too. And sometimes it's not really our fault. We don't understand everything he's going to do. The more we study, the more I believe we will begin to understand this is what's coming. And that will enable us on the best day or our worst day to trust the life. Jesus said to her, I am the resurrection and the life. Whoever believes in me, though he die, yet shall he live. And everyone who lives and believes in me shall never die. D.L. Moody would say, someday you will read in the papers, D.L. Moody of East Northfield is dead. Don't you believe a word of it. At that moment, I shall be more alive than I am now. Jesus is saying that death is not the end. You close your eyes and you wake up in his presence in eternity. This is an ego eimi, where Jesus uses that phrase, I am ego eimi, the resurrection and the life. He's saying God is the resurrection and the life, and that's me. When Christ, who is your life, appears, then you will also appear with him in glory. That Zoe life comes through Jesus. The life provides an eternal future. The life provides an eternal future. Do you believe this? Jesus asks her. She said to him, yes, Lord, I believe that you are the Christ, the Son of God, who is coming into the world. So the last thing we see in our passage is that the life requires faith. Jesus doesn't say who he is and leave it. He asks Martha, do you believe this? And she responds completely, yes, I do. Here's what I know about you. She calls him the Christ, the Son of God, who is coming into the world. And there are passages in the Old Testament that allude to that future. One is in 2 Samuel 7. It says, when your days are fulfilled and you lie down with your fathers, I will raise up your offspring after you, who shall come from your body, and I will establish his kingdom. He shall build a house for my name, and I will establish the throne of his kingdom forever. And your house and your kingdom shall be made sure forever before me. Your throne shall be established forever. The beginning of that is talking to David, and God is saying, I will raise up someone who will come after you and will build a house for my name. We know that's Solomon. And then he says, I will establish the throne of his kingdom forever. So what Martha is saying when she says that you are the Christ, that's Messiah, this is who they thought the Messiah would be, that the Messiah would be a physical ruler in the line of David. Isaiah says, for unto us a child is born, to us a son is given, and the government shall be upon his shoulder. And his name shall be called Wonderful Counselor, Mighty God, Everlasting Father, Prince of Peace. Of the increase of his government and of peace there will be no end. On the throne of David and over his kingdom, to establish it and to uphold it with justice and with righteousness from this time forth and forevermore. We see that this is a son and that he will be called Mighty God. This is a son of God, and that the government will be on his shoulders. It's the throne of David. We see a lot of those things. And Martha is saying, I believe these things. She understands that he is the Messiah and he is the Son of God and he was coming into the world. This is the passage we're looking at, and I don't have it up there so you can read it, but you can see believe, 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 believe multiple times. This passage is about faith. This passage over and over talks about belief and believe. Jesus is asking that of Martha and she's responding. He's asking it of us as well. Paul David Tripp this month in the New Morning Mercies devotional, in part in one of them, said, "You don't have to worry about whether your world is under control. God rules. You just have to learn to trust him when his rule isn't evident." Martha seems clearly to trust Jesus, even though it doesn't look like he has it under control. Faith comes before the miracle. Martha's faith comes before the miracle. Now, our faith can be rock solid, and we may still not get the miracle we hope for. In this case, the miracle comes. It may not come for us, but faith needs to come before whatever it is. The passage goes on. So that was our passage. Now let's keep going to see what else we can learn. When she had said this, she went and called her sister Mary, saying in private, "The teacher is here and is calling for you." And when she heard it, she rose quickly and went to him. Now Jesus had not yet come into the village, but was still in the place where Martha had met him. When the Jews who were with her in the house, consoling her, saw Mary rise quickly and go out, they followed her, supposing that she was going to the tomb to weep there. Now when Mary came to where Jesus was and saw him, she fell at his feet, saying to him, "Lord, if you had been here, my brother would not have died." When Jesus saw her weeping, and the Jews who had come with her also weeping, he was troubled, moved in his spirit, and greatly troubled. We don't understand this as deeply, as strong as this grief is. In the English, it doesn't come out as deeply moved and as upset as Jesus is. And he said, "Where have you laid him?" They said to him, "Lord, come and see." Jesus wept. So the Jews said, "See how he loved him." But some of them said, "Could not he who opened the eyes of the blind man also have kept this man from dying?" Then Jesus, deeply moved again, came to the tomb. It was a cave, and a stone lay against it. Jesus said, "Take away the stone." Martha, the sister of the dead man, said to him, "Lord, by this time there will be an odor, for he has been dead 4 days." Jesus said to her, "Did I not tell you that if you believed, you would see the glory of God?" So they took away the stone. There are some times when the miracle is coming, whether it's complete healing or whatever, God calls us to do things. Could he have moved the stone himself, brought him out himself? Absolutely. But he calls them to do things. There are times when he will call us to do things, and we need to be willing to move whatever stone he calls us to. Jesus lifted up his eyes and said, "Father, I thank you that you have heard me. I knew that you always hear me, but I said this on account of the people standing around, that they may believe that you sent me." When he had said these things, he cried out with a loud voice, "Lazarus, come out." The man who had died came out, his hands and feet bound with linen strips, and his face wrapped with a cloth. Jesus said to them, "Unbind him and let him go." Jesus raises Lazarus. Scholars believe that if he had not said, "Lazarus, come out," that every grave there would have opened and everyone would have been resurrected. Jesus is the resurrection and the life. I have 2 questions for you as we're thinking about this. Do you believe this story happened? Because that's critical, particularly because this story is about resurrection. And Easter is about resurrection. Do you believe this story happened? I was reminded this week of a good friend of mine. Her daughter years ago had a friend, and the mother came to her and said, "Hey, I don't think our kids can be friends anymore. Your daughter is confusing my daughter about the Bible." Now, this woman is a Bible study leader in a church in our area. And so my friend said, "Wait, how is she confusing your daughter?" And the woman said, "She believes the things in it are true and not just stories." My friend was kind of astonished and said, "Wait, don't you believe that they're true?" And she said, "No, they're just stories." We need to understand these are not just stories. And your belief in this matters, particularly because our faith rises and falls on the resurrection. If Jesus is not resurrected, it says in 1 Corinthians, we are above all, most to be pitied because we're deluded. You need to believe the story happened. If you don't, think through that, talk to someone. And the second question is, do you think Lazarus was happy when he was resurrected? Because remember, you die and you're with Jesus. And now he has to come back and face all the things again. It says in another passage that the Jews sought to kill him again. So his life, the Mary and Martha were probably really happy. But do you think Lazarus was? We often mourn when people die, but if they know Jesus, they are much better, much happier where they are. On your best day or your worst day, he is life. Proverbs 3, 5, and 6 says, trust in the Lord with all your heart and do not lean on your own understanding. In all your ways, acknowledge him and he will make your path straight. That's what Martha does in this passage. She trusts God. She doesn't understand what's going on. She acknowledges who he is and he makes straight her paths. And in this case, again, it worked out just how she would want. Even if it didn't, I believe that Martha would still have learned from Jesus and grown and had that abundant life that he came to provide. Paul David Tripp, this quote I read just a minute ago, when it talks about you don't have to worry. Remember, God rules. You just need to trust him when his rule isn't evident. For our Live It Out this week, I want to encourage you to remind yourself this week that God is writing a better story. God is writing a better story. Martha didn't understand that. She just wanted Lazarus to get well. God did something in that story that allowed people to believe in him and have incredible rock-solid faith. God is writing a better story. On your best day or your worst day, he's writing a better story. We're going to look at a scene from The Chosen miniseries now. The Chosen is the story of Jesus and his disciples, if you're unfamiliar with it, and it takes Bible passages and you get to see them in action. Now, there's a few things about The Chosen in that there are, for instance, this is James. This is an interaction between James and Jesus. James is one of the disciples. We know that from scripture. In the series, James is lame. That isn't a detail that we know from scripture. So we have no way of knowing whether James was or wasn't lame. But this is in the series to allow Jesus to do and say things that really show who he is. So while we don't know that James is lame, I think this scene does depict something that can be very helpful to us in thinking about Jesus being the resurrection and the life and his power. So let's watch.
Master.
Little James.
May I have a moment?
Of course.
Forgive me, I'm not always confident to speak.
Slow to speak. It's a very good quality.
I wanted to ask you a question.
Please?
So you're sending us out with the ability to heal the sick and lame. Yes, that is what you said.
Yes.
So you're telling me that I have the ability to heal. Forgive me, I just find that difficult to imagine with my condition, which you haven't healed.
Do you want to be healed?
Yes, of course, if that's possible.
I think you've seen enough to know it's possible.
Then why haven't you?
Because I trust you.
What?
Little James. Precious little James. I need you to listen to me very carefully. Because what I'm going to say defines your whole life to this point and will define the rest of your life. Do you understand? In the Father's will, I could heal you right now. And you'd have a good story to tell, yes?
Yes, that you do miracles.
And that's a good story. But there are already dozens who can tell that story. And there will be hundreds more, even thousands. But think of the story that you have, especially in this journey to come, if I don't heal you. To know how to proclaim that you still praise God in spite of this. To know how to focus on all that matters, so much more than the body. To show people that you can be patient with your suffering here on earth because you know you'll spend eternity with no suffering. Not everyone can understand that. How many people do you think the Father and I trust this with? Not many.
But the others, there's so much more.
So much more what?
I don't know. Stronger? Better at this?
James, I love you. But I don't want to hear that ever again.
I know how easy it is to say the Song of David, that I fearfully and wonderfully made. But it doesn't make this any easier. And in this group, it doesn't make me feel like any less of a burden.
A burden? First of all, it is far easier to deal with your slow walking than it is to deal with Simon's temper. Trust me. Are you fast? Do you look impressive when you walk? Maybe not. But these are things the Father doesn't care about. You are going to do more for me than most people ever dream. So many people need healing in order to believe in me. Or they need healing because their hearts are so sick. That doesn't apply to you. And many are healed or not healed because the Father in heaven has a plan for them which may be a mystery. And we remember what Job said. The Lord gives and the Lord takes away. Blessed be the name of the Lord. When you pass from this earth and you meet your Father in heaven, where Isaiah promises you will leap like a deer, your reward will be great. So hold on a little longer. And when you discover yourself finding true strength because of your weakness, and when you do great things in my name, in spite of this, the impact will last for generations. Do you understand?
Yes. Thank you, Master.
A man like you healing others. Oh, what a sight. I can't wait to hear your stories when you return. Shalom, my son.
Shalom.
And James, remember, you will be healed. It's only a matter of time. Shalom, my son.
Shalom.
impact will last for generations. That's what Jesus said. I have to imagine that the story we studied this week, the impact of it lasted for generations. What God is doing in your life on your best day or your worst day, when we truly lean into understanding that He is life, the impact will last for generations. Thanks so much for watching. It is very difficult to record in a room with no people in front of you. It changes your energy, it changes so much, but you have made it to the end, and I am so grateful. Let me finish with our benediction. Through the Lord's goodness, you were brought into this world. By His grace, you have been kept all the day long, even until this very hour. And by the love of God fully revealed in the face of Jesus Christ, you have been redeemed. Live in light of that redemption. Thank you.